So you have all of these U.S. companies now and companies around the world that are saying they're providing their own sort of sanctions, right? You mentioned Boeing. What was Boeing doing? They're not going to
Boeing and Airbus now have suspended parts and maintenance support for Russian airlines.
Okay.
I'm not sure, again, exactly what that does except put civilians at harm. That's very worrying. Mercedes-Benz has discontinued deliveries into Russia. Apple has said now they will halt sales in Russia. Google and Spotify are removing their content from all Kremlin-backed platforms. So the corporate response has come fast.
Ford, did you mention Ford?
I did not mention Ford.
They're suspending operations in Russia. They have a 50% stake at Ford Solars, which is a joint venture that employs 4,000 people. Again, 4,000 people. These are not Russian oligarchs who are being hurt. These are Russian people who work at these Ford manufacturers right now. You have General Motors also. It's halting all exports in this country until further notice. The list is on. As you mentioned, Apple's not going to sell iPhone. Who does that hurt, by the way? Facebook. Oh, Facebook. That's rich. We'll get to Facebook's hypocrisy in a moment. But I love that these companies literally are saying, we are going to shut down operations in Russia because of what Putin, what their leader is doing right now. But we're fine. We're fine making as much money as we can in China. We'll continue to do all of our normal operations in China, and we will not. If China wants us to do something, wants us to remove certain things from our search results, or wants us to make a special feature inside of our iPhones, sure, we'll do that. Apple has gone along with what China has wanted for many, many years. They see it as a huge opportunity to make money.
Why aren't
it's got
they
to
doing
be one of those
anything?
cost-benefit analysis, right?
Well, and why aren't they doing anything to the U.S. when we're the ones doing? I mean, we're doing worse than Putin is all over the world, and they're not doing anything here.
Right.
No, I mean, the U.S. won't call out human rights violations and so forth against the United States, et cetera. But no, these companies, YouTube, I love YouTube, Google, Roku, Spotify, BP. Here's a big one. BP Energy said on Sunday it's gonna take out 19% of its stake in Russia's biggest oil company. So BP has a conscience all of a sudden.
Oh, okay.
BP, just want you to make sure.
They can kill baby seed life. But
It's just amazing. I love this. I'm sure all of these companies are also probably changing their websites, so they put a Ukrainian flag on there. We stand with Ukraine. Like
Yes.
I was on Giphy this morning. Giphy is like the website where you make GIFs,
Yes.
like we're like funny little memes, because we use it in our newsletter sometimes. And the top of the Giphy is like, we stand with Ukraine. Like you share your Ukrainian gifts here.
Right.
Like,
How do
okay.
you think that makes the people of Yemen and Somalia and all these places feel that they're like, wait, look at us. Like, we're over here dying every day, and where's our banners? Where's our flags on your profiles? Where's our awareness?
Most people didn't know about the Rwandan genocide until there was a movie about it, right? The United States knew. What did
Bill
we
Clinton
do?
talked about it. One of his worst regrets of his presidency was not acting soon enough. He waited way too long in Rwanda to do anything.
Yes, there's a story in the
Well, and the
newsletter this
Congo,
morning
too.
about the lasting effects of genocide, and researchers had studied the DNA of women who were pregnant and their babies during the genocide, and they found that those people have their DNA altered, and they're not sure how many generations down it will be passed, but it does show traits of PTSD and mental health disorders and depression and fear and anxiety and all of those things, right, have a lasting effect. And this is not just something that's happening in Ukraine. It does happen all over the world, but this is the cause de célèbre. Interestingly enough, in January, the Biden Labor Department had asked for a waiver for Credit Suisse, which is a bank that has donated heavily to the Biden administration, to not be slapped with sanctions, right? This was before any sanctions were issued, but why did the Biden administration preemptively ask that Credit Suisse be prevented from being punished if sanctions were put in place? Now, 2 Democratic senators are saying, look, we know they're your buds, but can you please withdraw this protective shield around them, because sanctions are sanctions, which just goes to show you that politicians are willing to put sanctions up to a point, but if it hurts them, no. Right? It can hurt everyday people, your average Russian grandmother who can't get cash out and now can't buy her medicine, right? This is a big problem. Now they're saying that over 50% of medicines inside Russia are imported from somewhere else. You can't leave people without access to medicines, right? But we're willing to do that, but not to Credit Suisse, not if they're big donors.
Right. Yeah. I
Well,
mean,
and
if
that's the thing,
if you give if you've given a couple $1 million to Biden, you're good. Like, you don't have to worry about it. You will be removed from the sanctions list.
Well, and I've always said sanctions are an act of war because people die with sanctions. And a lot of people don't realize that. They're like, oh, just put sanctions on them, economic sanctions. That's fine. But they don't realize that they're not getting insulin. They're not getting certain medicines that children need. So children die from sanctions.
Yeah. Can you read that, the super chat that just went by about sanctions just quickly? Because I don't want to get it at the end of the show.
Yeah.
So the point of sanctions is to incite the people. Sanctions create public deprivation, and when the people are starving, they subvert the government.
So it's a great question. It's a great point, King Buddha, who says that in our super chat. And I think the really interesting article today in Bloomberg Business Week about the effects of these sanctions. And one of the criticisms is that with sanctions, you need to basically provide a why or a what. Like, here's what we want you to do with these sanctions. We're gonna put all of these sanctions on your country. Here's what we want you to do. And we have not given Putin a clear what we want you to do answer in any of this. And furthermore, the argument is that this could last 10, 15, 20 years of reverberations of sanctions against the Russian people. And there's no clear way of sort of putting that genie back in the bottle. He could move his forces out of Ukraine, but it could take decades for this to be unraveled and the economic problems to then still be hitting the Russian people, even if he just suddenly tomorrow moves his tanks out of there.
It also does seem that the sort of the ego-based response to this is much different in Russia than it is in China. In China, when we put sanctions on sort of high-ranking officials, they do take offense, right? And they do react with some kind of they react in kind in a way that usually does harm the U.S. economy. Russia has not done that. They are just eyes on the ground at this point. Like, we're going to have to keep our economy running somehow, but we are going to continue to move forward with this planned attack, no matter how it's going.
If you like this content, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Also, we have a membership program. For the price of a cup of coffee once a month, you can support independent journalism just by going to morninginvest.com/join.
You get access to exclusive videos, plus the ability to join and chat with us live. We really appreciate your subscription, and you are supporting independent journalism.